The Sage for Education software was launched about 5 years ago, and while it was based on the Sage 200 professional software, there are a number of changes that have been made to it to make it more education relevant, which is in main what I'm going to go through. But also one of the key differences between the Sage for Education and the Sage 200 Professional is Sage for Education is a cloud solution with the data being hosted in a multi-tenanted environment by Sage on the Microsoft Azure platform. So Sage for Education, being a cloud-based product, offers a number of benefits to the system. The most obvious one is it does away for the hardware requirements, and there's not a need for a server infrastructure for the software. And also with the data being hosted for you, it also comes with the benefit of the software automatically being backed up on a daily, weekly and monthly basis for you. So there's no additional cost of ownership of looking after the data, making sure that things are being kept up to date from that point of view. Another of the benefits of it being hosted in a multi-tenanted environment is that it means that everybody who uses the Sage for Education software is always on the most up-to-date version, and updates happen automatically for you overnight. So typically Sage release a new upgrade or release a new fix every 3 to 4 months. And one of the things that Sage are keen to do in that area is to share with users the roadmap of the software. So within the software, there's a link to the Sage website that will allow you to go in and look at past past new features that have been added into the data as the system's upgraded. But Sage are also keen to share with you what they're doing in the next release and also what type of things they've got planned for the future. So like to be very transparent and give that view to the users. And one of the features that they have within the Sage for Education product, which helps drive those roadmaps, is the concept of an ideas hub. So users of the software are able to log into an area on the Sage website and make suggestions of new features or changes to functionality that they would like to be added to the program. And Sage are very keen to take this so that they can make sure that new functionality that they're introducing is functionality that users are going to see a benefit to. And since Sage introduced that concept, they've used that a lot to sort of develop a community of people to be able to make suggestions and ask questions and things there. But also Sage are very, very keen to explain when they've added new features in. It gives them an opportunity to say where those ideas have come from and show why they've made those changes. The final sort of benefit of being a cloud-based solution, probably one that's come especially to the forefront in the last year or so, is that by having the data hosted on the cloud, it means that users are able to access their data from anywhere and process information from anywhere on there. Now, historically, and for the majority of the demo today, I'm going to be working through this thin client application that I've installed to run through the program. However, one of the things that Sage have started to introduce and are improving the introduction of in the system there within the roadmaps is to, as well as having this traditional application view of processing information within Sage for Education, is also to introduce these web forms and web views of the system. So the purpose of these is to actually mean that there is no requirement at all to install any software, even a thin client application on a workstation. And users can access their data and process their data from anywhere. This is just one of the web forms that I've gone to, which is showing my suppliers list of information here, which matches my supplier list within the program itself. From within here, you can see there are buttons across the top of the different types of transactions that I can process in relation to the software. And one of the reasons that Sage have gone down this route here is to make the software an absolute true cloud offering products. And by doing that, it means, by using the web forms, it means that the product no longer becomes a PC style product, but it means that it's totally device agnostic. So rather than having to run the program on a PC, anything that you can access the internet browser on, you can start using for running Sage and processing information on it. So whether that's a tablet, a Mac, or a mobile phone even, you can start using the system on there. Going back into the program itself and looking at some of the things that Sage have introduced into the education program, so on top of what's in the traditional product, is one of the first things that you see when you actually set up your data set in the first place is that you'll be asked what type of a school are you. So whether you're an academy or a maintained school, if you're a maintained school, it will also ask you to select which local authority you're working with. And the choice between maintained school and academy and the local authority becomes relevant in terms of suggesting default nominal codes, so charts of accounts on the system, but also the difference between being a maintained school and academy will also open certain other areas of functionality. So introducing things like SOFA categories for the SOFA reports for academies on that. If I just come out of this screen here and go to have a look at my nominal ledger itself. So the nominal ledger in Sage for Education can be made up to 3 tiers within the nominal structure, which are made up of an account code, a reference, a cost center, and a department. The idea behind this is to offer schools flexibility when they're setting this information up. You'll all be aware of the DFE chart of accounts for better reporting on there. Typically within an academy on there, we would start from importing in that data into the system, so using that nominal ledger, those nominal ledger codes that are advised. But the cost centers and departments offer an element of flexibility in there. So typically, the cost centers will be used for identifying individual funds and for fund reporting on there, with departments being used to identify departments within a school, year groups within a school for reporting purposes. However, the use of the cost centers can be slightly different depending on what what an academy trust looks like. So in the cases of multi-academy trusts that have centralized ledgers and a centralized bank account, those cost centers can be used as individual schools. And throughout the program, as you come to run reports on the system, so for instance, even things like a trial balance, the trial balance can be run across the data set as a whole, or can just be to select individual cost centers. So in that case of a multi-academy trust with more than one school in the data set, you would be able to run a TB per individual school. In terms of the setting up of things like budgets, in terms of departments and leading on to budgets, is when departments are set up in the system, against individual departments, you're able to record a contact detail and email address for individuals that are responsible for particular departments within the system. And against each nominal code, there is the ability to record budget figures against individual codes. Gone and picked a nominal code without budget on. Let me just go to the one below on there. So the ability to record budget information against individual nominal codes. Now, budget information can either be sort of manually entered, and you can choose whether you want budgets to be entered annually and split equally throughout the year, whether you want to go in and change the individual codes for each year. Typically, what most people will do is upload these budgets from Excel. They typically create the data in Excel and load that information into Sage. What you can see is you've got the ability for an original budget and a current budget. So the system as a default will allow you to hold sort of one variation, one revision of the budget. And that budget information and those details there can then be used to produce predefined reports and statements that can be shared. In my example here, I'll just create a very simple budget statement for my maths department. And what this statement will produce for me on here is a detailed view of all of the nominal codes which have been associated to the maths budget, will show me what the individual budgets were, what my actual spend per line has been, any additional commitments to spend I have for that individual line, and show what my remaining balance is on a line basis, and also as a budget as a whole. Behind this report, in subsequent pages, what I've also got is a breakdown of the transactions that make up the actual or commitment balances. And the idea behind these is that you can run these statements for across the whole school for all the departments, and then at the touch of a button have the option of emailing these out as PDF automatically to the email address which is associated with a particular budget. So designed just to share that information with the budget holders in an easy to read format. Now, one of the alternatives to that, and another way that data in the Sage for Education can be viewed and worked on, is as well as having this application view for actual users of the system who are actually going to process data, Sage also supply the opportunity, I'll just quickly continue there before I get kicked out, also have the opportunity for users to view information from web browsers again on the system here. So this view here would allow a user to dial in and see that same sort of information relating to their own budgets in a real-time self-serve solution. Now from from this screen here, they're only able to view data. They're not able to actually enter any invoices or anything like that. But rather than waiting for budget holders to wait till the end of a month for statements to be sent out to them, it allows them to go in and look at the data whenever it's relevant for them to pick information up. And I'll come back to some other uses of these types of views in a little bit. So one of the things that we saw on the budgets view of information there on the statement was the fact that as well as recording actual costs, committed costs are able to be shown on the system there as well. And that's because as part of the Sage for Education software on there, you've got the ability to, or the system includes the option for a purchase order module. And this is a sort of process map of the purchase order screen on here. So within purchase orders on here, you can see there's the opportunity to record that purchase orders need to be authorized or they can be sent out to suppliers. The workflow also shows that there's the opportunity to match received invoices to your original purchase orders and also to perform a three-way matching to make sure that purchase invoices match what you have ordered and the value that you've ordered and also the goods that you've received. In the example of purchase orders that have been entered and fall into the rules around authorizations, I've got, for example, a purchase order here for £180,000 on there, so quite a large purchase order going through. And you can see at the moment here, the status of this order is that it hasn't yet been authorized. What that will mean is up until the point that it's authorized, if I was to try and say that I wanted to print the purchase order to be able to email it out to a supplier, it will tell me that it's not available until it's been authorized by somebody with authority to do that. In this particular case here, I'm just going to go in and look at doing the authorization or performing the authorization on this particular purchase order on here. And from this screen, I would be able to see a list of all the purchase orders that I am responsible for authorizing. This is something that I can either do from within the program here or again from within the web views. However, if I try and authorize this purchase order, in this particular case here, what I will get is a warning to tell me that by trying to authorize that purchase order, I'm going to go over budget, and can then go and see what the reasons are and find out a report of what it is that is taking me over budget, go in and view that data in a bit more detail before I make a decision on authorizing that purchase order. Linked to the purchase orders is Sage for Education also includes a purchase requisitions module on the system so that individual users are able to log on and register their own requests of items that they would like to be purchased on their behalf. Now, as these go through, again, these will go through an authorization process. There are rules that you can produce in there. So I can have the situation where somebody will enter a requisition and might select the items that they want, but may not know who the supplier or the nominal code that those items relate to. So with rules, I can start creating requisitions, choosing how much information I want the individual to process and what needs processing. As they are happy with their requisition, they can go in adding more lines to the system, or once they are happy with that, submit that for approval. The approval of the requisitions comes in a level before the purchase orders so that you can decide how the system works. So either approve of the purchase requisitions approvers are able to authorize and create purchase orders themselves, or that it will all go to a central location, a central purchaser who can then make decisions and combine requisitions into individual purchase orders or group them together. The final element really I wanted to show you in this sort of quick overview of the software here is around reporting and the different type of reports that Sage for Education will provide for you. So we've already looked at certain reports like the budget statement that the system will produce and can be emailed out for you automatically. But Sage will come with a whole host of out-the-box reports, and there are a couple of different ways that reports can be raised within the system and used from the system. So Sage comes with its own report designer, which will allow you to produce standard reports that can then be used for either printing out or emailing to colleagues. But you've also got the ability to send those reports down into Excel, either to show the report itself as an Excel file or to produce the data into Excel. Other method or other type of reports that Sage for Education comes with is it comes with some reports specially designed to be run in Excel. And what these reports will do is send Sage information directly into Excel and will use some pre-configured pivot tables within the system here so that within the face of a report, you can very easily slice and dice your data the way that you want to here. So this is a budgets v actuals report in here, but if I'm only actually interested in looking at the maths department on there, I can break this information down and see the data. What I've also got the ability to do is choose which periods I'm interested in there. So I can run this report to look for the whole year, or I can start drilling down to just look at individual periods or groups of periods on the information there.